I'll be the best wife ever, my unfaithful wife promised. After 25 years of marriage, Clint Hawkins had planned a surprise trip to Italy for his wife, Rose. He had no idea that his life was about to change dramatically when he became president of Western Financial Services. Clint had built a comfortable life for his family. The company had its roots in his great-grandfather's business. Clint continued the family tradition of business and civic engagement. "Good evening, dear," Clint said with a smile as he came into the kitchen. Rose looked up from the kitchen table. Her expression was neutral. "I thought you'd be here earlier," she said. "What's that big red envelope? Don't you remember Valentine's Day was a week ago?" "I know," Clint replied. "I had to run an important errand, so I had to get that envelope." He put his briefcase and the envelope on the coffee table. "We need to get that envelope done tonight." He joined Rose at the table where she'd already poured 2 glasses of red wine. He noticed a pen and paper in front of her glass. "How was your day?" Rose asked. Her tone made it seem like she wasn't really interested in the answer. "My day went pretty well," Clint said, glancing at the list. "But based on what's in front of you, my evening will be more important than my day." Rose has been thinking about where she is in her career and what she wants to do next. She recently had a few things happen that made her realize she needs to make some changes. "I'm hosting my sorority's 25th reunion, and 2 classmates have passed away from cancer. Their kids are also leaving home. That brings me to our marriage," Rose said, looking Clint in the eye. "This June marks our 25 years is a long time to be together. I'd say that about half of my sorority sisters are already married for a second or third time. What's keeping us together, and more importantly, what will keep us together for the next 25 years?" Clint listened closely, his mind racing. He got what she was saying. He started off by saying, "I have the same concerns about my own life. Some men fall into the middle category, and I'd say I'm in the aged, crazy category. I buy Corvettes, wear gold chains, and chase young waitresses. Luckily, I have a great wife, and I haven't caught this disease. What can I do to make the next half of our lives interesting and worthwhile?" "That's precisely why I appreciate you, Clint," Rose replied. "Most men tend to ignore their wives' problems. They say it's your problem. It's up to you to find a solution. Here's what I think we should do. I've always lived in someone else's home. I was raised in my father's house. Then, when I was in college, I transferred. Just over a month after I left the sorority house, I came here to live under his roof. I've always had someone to fall back on. I've never been alone," she went on, her voice becoming more impassioned. "It's been fun living with you, but lately it hasn't always been fulfilling. I'm the wife of the Chamber of Commerce president, the church board member, the country club president, and so on. I'm not just a leader's wife. I'm the wife of everything. Clint, you're the son, and I'm just one of the people who are connected to you in some way. I need to get out of this orbit, or I'll go crazy." Rose took a deep breath. "I think I'll leave it at that for now. I think I need to take a step back for a while. I'm going to be living somewhere else for the next 6 months, and I won't be in touch. I know it'll be tough on both of us, as I'll be wondering what you're up to all the time. By the end of the 6 months, I'll be back in touch, and we can make a plan for the rest of our lives." Clint looked at her, taken aback. No contact. I know I need to give you some space, but banning contact seems extreme. Our lives are so intertwined that it would be tough to separate them. Just explain how that would work. It would be like we weren't married. We're going to take some courses on feminism and look at things from a different point of view. It's like a divorce, but without the animosity and distrust. We'll be like partners who have been apart for 6 months. It's not uncommon for military couples to do that and still get along just fine. As Clint thought about what Rose was suggesting, he felt a chill run through him. You said you'd act like a single woman and socialize with interesting people. Would that include dating other men? Rose smiled. I suppose so, but I doubt anyone will want to take me out to dinner and a movie as a single woman who probably goes on dates. Are you planning to do that on these dates too? Clint asked. His voice was tight. Rose replied casually, how else can I make the most of my experience as a woman? I've only had one experience with you. I want to be on your level. Clint's expression turned serious. You're forgetting one thing. We're married. I've promised myself that all my future experiences will be with you. You made the same commitment. I've stuck by you, and I expect the same in return. We'll have to wait and see what happens over the next 6 months. Rose said, we'll make that decision at the end of my vacation. Then there might not be a chance to bring you back into my life. Clint replied, you can just go on. I'm not interested in living with someone else. Don't act so dramatic, Rose, he replied. It's just sex, nothing more. I'm sure you'll be happy we're back together after 6 months. Please don't make a fuss about it. I'm working on becoming a better person, and I think the confidence I'll gain from having sex with other men will make me a better lover with you, and a more fulfilled woman in all other aspects. Clint felt like he'd been hit hard. I think a month without contact is excessive. We could look into some of your concerns through counseling, but Rose was pretty set on it. I don't just want to talk about it. I want to do it, she said. I've got to make some big changes, or I'll keep relying on you for everything and never improve myself. She added, it has to be as if we're not married, so I can come back into our marriage with a better attitude. Clint took a moment to think. No, he replied. We need to start from scratch with my. Rose said we'd have to work through this for 6 months and not let it drag on for a year or 2. Let's get back to where we want to be as a couple as soon as possible. When do you plan to move out of our house? Clint inquired. I've rented an apartment for 6 months, and we'll start moving things there this weekend, Rose replied. We still have a few more changes to make before we make such an important change in our lives. Rose took his hand. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me about this. I think it'll make our lives better in the long run. I appreciate your understanding and your willingness to be constructive, rather than confrontational or aggressive. Your plan is pretty ambitious. I'm not sure what I should ask or what I should talk about. My brain is all over the place right now. Let's get some rest and talk about it tomorrow night. Can I join you in bed, or has the separation already begun? Not now, Rose, she replied. I want to work out the details of my move, but I'm hoping to be in bed with you tonight. Clint went up to bed and collapsed into it, totally worn out. But he couldn't get to sleep because he had so many questions and doubts racing through his mind. Later that night, Rose got into bed and snuggled up against Clint's back, giving him a kiss on the shoulder. Clint could feel her tears as she apologized. "I'm so sorry, Clint." "I'm sorry too," he replied quietly. "I love you." She asked, "Is that the last time I'll hear that from you?" He replied, "I want our lives to be better, not worse, after my adventure." She whispered, "I'm going to come back to you as a better wife and lover." The next morning, Clint woke up early and left the house without making Rose her usual cup of coffee. He sent a text to his friend Roger from the car dealership. After he told Roger what Rose was up to, his friend said, "It seems like she's already got a boyfriend, but she's not ready to make it official. She wants to experience it before she moves on. If she's happy with her boyfriend in 6 months, she'll probably end things with you. If he doesn't measure up, she'll come back to you saying, 'I'm ready to be your wife again.' You're the foundation she can use to improve her situation. If she's with her lover and there's minimal risk to herself, how can I protect myself from being used like that?" Clint said, "It'd be best to end things with her. And do it quickly." Roger said, "Take control. You have to make the decisions. When she moves out, you'll file for divorce. You'll say she left you. The divorce will take about 6 months. Either way, if she leaves you, the divorce will be ready to be finalized. If you decide you want to get her back, you can just refuse to sign the final document and stay. If you're married, it's important to decide what you want to do with her, not let her decide what she should do with you." Roger also pointed out that if you let her back in after she's cheated on you, it'll be easier for her to cheat again and again. One last piece of advice: stay true to who you are. Don't be aggressive and don't yell at her. That'll only create obstacles that'll hurt you in the future, both in the relationship and in court. Act like you understand and are on board with her plans. As Clint left the dealership, he noticed a black BMW 430i convertible in the lot and decided to buy it on the spot. "I'll probably do more this year than I did last year," he told Roger. When Clint got back home that evening, Rose was waiting for him. "Clint, where are you?" she called out, sounding a bit anxious. "I missed you this morning. Can we talk now? I've got a lot on my mind after our conversation yesterday." "I thought a car ride would be a good idea," Clint replied calmly. "I can take the day off and talk now if you'd like. My wonderful husband, let's meet up for lunch or maybe dinner after this meeting. I need you to be there with me because I'm afraid of what I think I want to do. I could really use your wisdom on this." Clint felt a brief sense of resentment at her sudden concern. "I just need a little more time to think about the implications of your divorce plans," he said quietly. "I'll head to the office, close the door, turn off my phone, and think about what the future holds. Let's get together for dinner tonight at the usual time and talk it over some more. I'll stop and get something to eat on the way. That way you don't have to worry about cooking or cleaning up the kitchen. Is that okay with you?" Rose was happy to agree when they sat down to dinner that evening. There was a definite awkwardness between them. Clint listened as Rose ran through her plans for the apartment and her upcoming courses. When she asked if she could borrow some furniture from their home, he said yes and thanked her for being so considerate. Rose said, "You really are a wonderful person." Clint held back a sarcastic reply. Instead, he simply said, "I don't think you can fit all your stuff into a one-bedroom apartment. The apartment is about 200 square feet. What are you going to do with all the extra stuff?" When Rose suggested leaving some things at the house, Clint shook his head firmly. "If you leave all of it, you'll have to leave me behind. I can't do that when I'm starting a new chapter." As the reality of the logistics sunk in, Rose's enthusiasm began to. "You can be considerate about providing me with a bed, but be a jerk about my unnecessary stuff." "I'm a jerk?" "Yes, you are. What can I do with my stuff except leave it here? You want to be independent, but you're asking me for help. Why is that? You could rent a warehouse. You'll find them all over the city." The discussion then turned into a back and forth over the practical details. At last, Clint set out his position. He said, "Rose, after our first chat about this, I did some research on my own. As long as I don't have my wife around, I should think about whether I should probably trade her in for someone else." Rose's eyes got big. "What do you mean by that?" "It's like when your car gets old and stops working, you get a newer model." Clint explained, "I'd also like to trade my wife for a younger and more interesting one, not an old one. I'll make myself more attractive to you. There's no need for you to go looking for a new wife." "I'm not keen on that idea, and I'm not keen on your idea either," Clint replied, "but you told me I had no say in your decision. You were going to go ahead with it regardless of what I said. You didn't think about how I'd feel if my wife was unfaithful. While you're going to do what you think is best, I'm going to do what I think is best for the next 6 months. Let's see what happens." The argument got pretty heated, and Rose ended up leaving the house in a huff. Clint was left to his own devices, mulling things over in his mind. The red envelope with the Paris trip plans still sat on the coffee table, unopened. Over the next few weeks, Clint threw himself into work and started to enjoy his newfound freedom. He gave the house a makeover, swapping out the family photos for sports memorabilia. He started barbecuing steaks on the patio and playing jazz music throughout the house. Rose had never allowed any of this. Meanwhile, Rose got settled into her new apartment and started taking feminist theory classes. However, she was starting to feel a bit sad about leaving her kids behind, especially since they were having a hard time understanding why she made the decision to go. As time went on, Clint and Rose found themselves having to learn how to handle new situations. Clint was reluctant to attend the court hearing. They had to go to marriage counseling sessions where the therapist asked them why they were separating. Rose said she just wanted to find herself, while Clint said her desire to be with other men was a deal breaker. Clint started spending time with 2 women. Tara is a gorgeous young widow with a son, and Greta is a former professional golfer who switched careers to become an insurance agent. He enjoyed their company, but he stuck to his promise not to have sex with anyone until his marriage was legally over. Rose, on the other hand, threw herself into the single scene with gusto. She went out clubbing with divorced friends and loved the attention from men. But then, in Dallas, she met a handsome stranger named Ted, who would change everything. As a result, she ended up facing consequences she hadn't anticipated. As the 6-month mark approached, things started to get tense. Rose was getting more and more convinced that Clint would welcome her back with open arms. But Clint was never the same after she betrayed him. When their kids found out about Rose's infidelity, that was the last straw. The day they had to face the music was when Clint and Rose met at the lawyer's office to decide what to do about their marriage. Rose showed up first, dressed in a new outfit and feeling pretty confident that they would be able to work things out. Clint came in last, leaving a bright red envelope on the desk. "Sorry I'm late," he said quietly. The lawyers chatted for a bit and got the paperwork done. Clint and Rose signed the final divorce papers, just like they'd agreed to. Then Clint turned to Rose. "Is there anything you'd like to say?" he asked. Rose took a deep breath. "It's been a long 6 months without the love of my life by my side," she said. "But with any challenge comes the chance to improve. I've made some positive changes, and I'm a more open-minded person now. I'm even more dedicated to our marriage than before. I'd like to thank my husband for giving me the chance to develop and grow. You gave me the chance to spread my wings and learn to fly. Clint, you'll never regret this gift. I'll show you how much I love you for the rest of my life." Clint listened without showing any emotion. He said, "Faith is about having trust in someone. All marriage vows are based on the idea of both parties being faithful to each other. If there's no trust, there's no love. That's why I've decided to initiate the divorce. I want my wife and I to remain faithful to each other. Over the past 6 months, I've spent time with several women. I haven't had any." He took a moment to look at Rose. "Rose, have you been faithful to me?" Rose was taken aback by his formal tone. "Yes, I've been faithful to you." Clint's face showed his discomfort. He reached for the envelope and pulled out a photograph. The photo showed Rose kissing Ted at the Dallas nightclub. Clint asked again, "Have you been faithful?" Rose stammered and blushed, saying it was just a kiss and didn't mean anything. Clint pulled out another photo, this one more explicit. Rose asked, "How did you get this? Were you following me?" "This is the most disgusting situation I've ever been in," Clint said, his voice shaking with anger. "This picture was taken by a friend of one of our sons in Dallas. Our son found out about the picture when Matt and his father were laughing at the woman who jumped Ted at the club. They confirmed it was you." Rose's face went pale as she realized what she had done. She began to cry. Clint carried on, his voice rising. "Just picture the pain of a son seeing his mother in a crowded club, trying to pick up someone to keep her entertained. Our son was sitting across the table from the man who made his father a cuckold and his mother a... Just picture what he must have been thinking when he saw that awful picture. You'd think he'd want to talk to us, but he doesn't." He handed both signed copies of the divorce decree to his attorney. "Please file them," he said firmly. "Clint, the sex was irrelevant to me." Rose asked him to reconsider. Ted didn't care either way. It was just a physical activity. There was no emotional connection, no commitment. That's even more unkind. That's not the best thing to say to me. It means a great deal to me, and I think you're being rather disrespectful. Please, Rose, don't say that. I'd like to be your wife again. Please accept my apology. I promise I'll be faithful to you. Please don't do this to me. I don't want to end up divorced like the other women in the clubs. Please don't turn me away. I'm sorry for that. I promise I'll never do this again." But Clint was already leaving. Her cries trailed off behind him as he strode to his BMW. He spent the rest of the day at home, relaxing with a glass of whiskey and a cigarette. As night fell, Clint sat on his patio with a cigar. He tuned out the constant buzzing of his phone, which was ringing nonstop from Rose Tara, Greta, and even his kids. The next morning, Tara woke him up by shaking his shoulder. "How are you holding up?" she asked, her face full of concern. He was still a little concerned, but he managed a weak smile. "I'm fine, but I'm not sure why you're asking." Tara let out a soft laugh. "I see you've still got your sense of humor after the divorce." She sat down next to him, putting an arm around his shoulders. "Does that future include me?" he replied without hesitation. Tara leaned in and gave him a little kiss. "I'm happy to wait as long as you have plans for me," she said. "There's no need to rush. Take your time. You're experiencing the final stages of a 25-year relationship. A year-long relationship isn't going to disappear overnight. I'll be there for you as autumn arrives, bringing cooler temperatures and changing leaves." Clint gradually started to adjust to his new reality. He turned down the golf invitations that weekend, saying he needed some time to process everything. She showed up at his doorstep. "I heard it was rough, but it's over," she said, showing her sympathy. Clint nodded and invited her in. They sat together on the couch, and Greta took a deep breath. "There's something I need to tell you," she began. "I wanted to tell you before, but you were already dealing with a lot, and we had such a great time together that I just couldn't bring myself to say it." Clint tensed up, braced for more bad news. "I'm already married," Greta said quietly. "My wife lives in Atlanta. We've been married for 5 years. Clint was taken aback. "What? When did this happen? How did that happen?" Greta went on to say that her feelings for Clint were those of a close friendship. She said that her feelings for him didn't change the fact that she loved him as her best friend and wanted him in her life always. She said that she could love him, but not marry him. As far as she was concerned, they could continue living the way they were. "If Tara is okay with it, I'd like to work on my relationship with her over the summer. I want her to know that I'm not trying to steal her man." As Greta's revelation sank in, Clint felt an unexpected sense of relief. The pressure he'd felt to potentially choose between Tara and Greta was gone. "Thanks for letting me know." He gave Greta's hand a little squeeze. "You're right. You're my best friend, and I'm glad we can continue that friendship without any complications in the weeks that follow." Clint was focused on getting better and moving forward. He spent time with both Tara and Greta and was grateful for their support. His relationship with Tara got stronger over time, thanks to mutual respect and understanding. Meanwhile, Rose had to get used to a new situation. She had to move to a smaller apartment in a less desirable neighborhood. Her finances were strained by the unfavorable divorce settlement, and her attempts to reconnect with her children were met with hesitation and lingering hurt. As winter drew near, Rose found herself facing long, lonely nights. She shivered as she walked home from her evening shift, pulling her coat tighter around her. It's going to be a long, cold winter for her,